Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Broadcasting around the world.
Well, hello.
This is your number one internet radio station.
Thursday night, TC Talk, 7:30. Good to be here again. And guess what, guys? Somebody managed to catch the train. Niall's with us. How you doing, Niall?
Yeah.
Nice you to join us. Better late than never.
Only a week late.
Only a week late. Rich is with us as well.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
You had a good week?
Yeah, steady away. You've been keeping the wheels of industry turning, haven't you, Tom?
I've just been saying before, I haven't seen Frasier all week because I've been working every day this week. Now, I'll tip my hat to anyone out there. Well, I suppose it's everyone out there. He has a proper job. He actually goes out and works every day. It's a nightmare. Why are you doing it? Stop it. Anyone that's on the M62 at 7 o'clock in the morning, you are nuts. I've forgotten how bad the M62 was at 7 o'clock in the morning.
It's an absolute nightmare.
Never mind HS2 trying to get you from London to Leeds in 2 hours. I'd like to get from Wakey to Bradford in 2 hours. You know what I mean? It's absolute chaos. I've had to leave at 7 o'clock so I can manage to get to the school talk for 9, sitting in a car park for half an hour. Otherwise I wouldn't have made it. But anyway, that's me ranting about the traffic. Going to start tonight with a little bit of an Irish band from back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. These are a Belfast band. And I think the Irish tune, what I want to try and bring you every now and again is a band that you've probably not heard of. It's a bit niche. You may well have heard of these ones, Stiff Little Fingers. This is Wasted Life.
And before we kick it off, it does say the radio edit, so if it does drop a little
And to be fair, they are Irish, so
yeah, I apologise profusely in advance.
I could be a soldier, go out there and fight to save this land. Be a people soldier, paramilitary gun in hand. I won't be a soldier, I won't take no orders from no one. Stop that fucking armies, killing isn't my idea of fun. They wanna waste my life, they wanna
stiff little fingers. I think we might have got away with it, but I'm not quite sure.
Oh, we've got away with it. Of course we have. I'd better ask for forgiveness than ask for
Permission.
permission.
Exactly. I
Right,
love
yeah.
that saying.
Really enjoyed that. It's good to hear any band from Belfast, the hometown. Tonight we're going to be talking about teenagers. Niall probably remembers being a teenager more than the rest of us.
I'm only recently an ex-teenager.
I know, yeah, he's an ex-teenager. It's like you've given up that bad habit. Have you been in recovery?
Oh, teenage years, and that's behind me now.
Went to rehab, got over the teenage years. Yeah, it's one of those things that I think me and Richard are of a similar age. I think we looked through teenage years probably as through rose-tinted glasses. Would you agree?
Definitely, yeah. Definitely.
Certainly I do. I tend to look through my teenage years as they were great, and probably they weren't. The reason I'm thinking about teenage life this week is my son Oliver turned 13 this week. Well, happy birthday, Oliver! So he turned 13 on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah.
I've just made up his date of birth. I don't know. Tuesday-ish. It was Tuesday-ish. He turned 13, and I was really. I started thinking about it. Wow, I can't even remember my 13th birthday. To be honest with you, I just can't remember turning it as a teenager. Can you remember your 13th?
No, I can remember. I was living in the pub at Harold's at 13. So some of the I remember.
I was probably in the pub at 13. 13 and a half I started drinking, so it was a little bit later than that. What about yourself, Now, do you remember that far back?
No, I don't remember 13.
You can't.
Only dates I remember are my 16th birthday, my 18th birthday.
See, this is the opportunity for your dad to say, "Oh, I remember your 13th. We got you this for your birthday,
but you
and we
don't.
got you this."
But you
And I'll
don't.
be honest with you, I can't remember a thing.
Don't remember it.
I don't remember any of your birthdays. That's not because I was drunk, because I wasn't. It was just because I don't remember. I've got a really bad memory when it comes to things like birthdays and whatever else. But my earliest memory is probably when you start to go into a little bit later. Obviously, not to bring it down too quickly, but I lost my father in my 13th year. So I was 13 and a half and my dad passed away. But for me, it was 14 was the year that things started to really ramp up for me. Started to drink a little bit more than I should have done. Got a job on a building site, 14 years of age. Really started to enjoy, almost felt like I was becoming a man. Even at 14, I'm thinking to myself, wow. But then the biggest thing for me at 14 was watching Leeds United. It was the season of 1989. We were languishing in the second division.
Oh yeah.
This is like a story. Have you got any art tune things? The theme tunes? We were languishing in the second division, and all of a sudden, along came Howard Wilkinson. Sergeant Wilco's Barmy Army kicked off. Gordon Strachan kicked in, and everything else started to change.
Vinnie Jones.
Vinnie Jones, Vinnie V. Do you remember the Vinnie V? Did you have a Vinnie V?
Yeah. Well, I remember going watching him, and they were playing something like Derby and Dave Batty scored, and Dave Batty never scored, and it were a beauty. It were about 35 yard out, and he leathered it. I'm thinking, oh my God, I've actually witnessed David Batty
goal,
scoring.
that's unbelievable. But the Vinnie V haircut now, you'll not
Yeah.
remember this. The Vinnie V haircut was a type of Mohican, but it was like just shaved at the back, down into a V at the back of your head, and all the kids had the Vinnie V. Now, I was never brave enough to go for a Vinnie V, I'll be honest with you. But then again, I had my haircut at Polish Joe's. Remember Polish Joe's?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Sorry, Niall, you'll come back into the conversation in a minute. But Polish Joe's is for anyone from Wakefield will know this. Polish Joe's are barbers above the Army Careers Office, and I always remember going in there as a teenager and going in my head. I was going wanted a bit of 3 backing sides, a little bit off the top, and styled a little bit like this. And Polish Joe would just look at you and like go with a grade 1 and just go and then just scalp you. That'd be him. So there's no Vinnie V's for me, but definitely a thing that I'm sure a lot of the guys who are listening tonight will remember, the Vinnie V haircut. But that for me is a big memory. 14 years of age, going to watch Leeds United. Only the home matches that season. I started following them away matches the season after. But for me, just having that belonging, that sense of being part of a group of lads, and there were a great group of lads back then, you know, going into the South Stand at Leeds, £2 in, £2 into a Leeds United match. You see, we are now starting to sound like old men. I remember the day when you can get into Leeds United for £2 and get a bag of chips on the way home. But yeah, so teenage memory for me there, and the fashion. Can you remember what the fashion was like, Richard?
I remember just going into the days where then after the Vinny V haircuts, it was the dresses with the dodgy permed at the back with the head bags and all that kind of. That was sort of
big flare jeans.
Yeah,
Joe Bloggs.
That's right.
Joe Blogg jeans, which the bigger the flare, the more stylish you were. And I tell you another thing that kicked in as well was brown jeans. Now who the heck wears brown jeans? But yeah, brown jeans and pink trainers. I had a pair of pink Adidas jeans trainers. And I tell you what, I wish I'd still had them. They'd be a collector's item now. So you can't find them anywhere I've looked. So yeah, pink trainers. There you go with brown jeans. What a fashion icon.
That's one word for it.
But when I look back as well, our behaviour back then was best described as lad behaviour. There's a bit of a lad culture, wasn't there? In the late 80s, early 90s. I think being certainly a teenage boy, there was a bit of a lad culture. It was basically you could moot around town, you could stay out to whatever time you wanted. You were always interested in fashion and music. It was just at the start of, in Spiral Carpets, Happy Mondays were starting to kick off in the music. Things were starting to really just ramp up. Up until that point, if you're a teenager, it was all about being a football hooligan. Certainly in my existence, up until around about late 80s, early 90s, it was all about just being a football hooligan, being with that group of lads, going to the football on Saturday and having a fight. Thankfully, I was a little bit too young for that. But then when the Manchester scene started kicking off, things were starting to change for us teenagers, and definitely some really good memories of the music and the times
and a lot of the rave scene as well. There were a lot of and it kind of changed a little bit and gone more back to the sort of 70s where everybody loved everybody, where everybody just.
But you see, there was one thing that changed everything, and as a parent now looking back, and now this will happen to you, I'm going, well, you see, this is where the rose tinted glasses comes in. Everybody loved each other. Yeah, ecstasy hit the scene, and the drug culture kicked in. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I know I'm going to lambast it. I'm an advocate for recovery, and nobody should be taking drugs or drinking. But I tell you what, when that started to hit the scene, everybody loved it. It was just one of those drugs that changed the entire atmosphere, changed the entire scene. It was always about, although I must admit, I stayed pretty much with the drink culture. I wasn't involved in drugs until much later.
I never did any of that. I mean, I was just drinking. I never did any of the ecstasy, any of the pills and all that. I mean, I used to go out with people that did. Yeah. But I don't know what it was. I think I don't know. Maybe I'm off. I think I was frightened of it, to be quite honest, because I think if I'd have liked it, I'd have wanted to do it more.
Oh, believe me, I liked it, and I did do it more. I did it far too much. But what's it like now? Now for the teenagers, is it a big? What's the big thing? So for us, it was the music, the fashion, and for us, it was the party drug. What's the big thing for them now?
Well, if I'm honest, I was letting you finish the whole description thing because it's not too different. Yeah. The scenes that you're describing aren't too different from what we're going through now. Yeah. I mean, the football scene lesser, at least in my experience, because there's not much of a focus on the football, at least in the areas that I'm generalising because I'm focused in one group, so the football scene doesn't really hit me as hard. But things like music culture and different rave scenes and stuff, it's still going on. I think we're going back to the 90s, if I'm honest. There's a lot of 90s fashion that's coming back, a lot of 90s things coming back.
You're going to be raiding my wardrobe. I've still got it all.
Hopefully not. But yeah, it's all really, it's all very, very like reminiscent. It's like circular, coming back. All the things that you'd thought we'd moved on from, or like tried to be original with. We're ended up now realising it's kind of a good era. Like,
are the drugs still the same? Is ecstasy still out there? I'm sounding really old now.
I don't think it's not as prominent No. I think the ones, obviously being in Yorkshire, we only get the, I'm not trying to promote the drug scene.
No.
I'm not just going to say that right now. I'm not promoting the drug scene in Yorkshire. It's awful because it's very, very, well, nowadays it's all very like mumbo jumbo, mixed with awful things, rat poisons and stuff like that. There's kids dying that are, taking drugs that are not even like refined or anything like that. It's all just
Made in the bathtub in Wigan.
yeah. It's an appalling scene at the moment.
Yeah.
But the culture's very reminiscent. I mean, you got the hippies. The hippies will never go away. I think they'll never. There's that scene, that little area of life will never disappear. They're always going to be there, wherever era you.
I must admit, you do always say that. Even when we were teenagers, you always had one person that walked around in tie dye.
Yeah.
I was always a bit cool and liked the surfing and did all that sort of
thing.
stuff.
It doesn't change. The only things that's changed is the internet's gotten bigger, the world's gotten smaller, and we've sort of maybe lost a bit of connection through the internet. That's all that's changed, really. I'm saying that's all that's changed. It's big differences, but at the same time, most of it, the little niches, are all very similar.
Yeah, because that's massive, isn't it? Obviously the internet wasn't around when we were teenagers.
Yeah, you're all sending ravens to each other with letters in.
I've told you about this. It wasn't a raven; it was a pigeon.
Lots
But
of
yeah,
faxes.
it was the old. It's just a phone. We didn't even have mobiles, really, did we?
Phone boxes.
Phone boxes. Having phone
This-
boxes
the-
had dual purpose.
This
Phone box had a purpose of ringing your mum when you were going to stay out later than you should have been, but also when you got stuck for somewhere to sleep, you would sleep in the phone box. And I've slept in a phone box on many an occasion, and just hoped that nobody had urinated in the bottom of it by the time I got there, which was also a common use for. That was 3 uses. A public toilet as well was often used for, So
They're
it's
still around. They're like dinosaur relics.
Right?
We just look at them like, who uses this anymore? Like, why?
You still have phone boxes. I've never seen a phone.
I'm surprised that David Attenborough hasn't done a little
There
series
is
about it.
down bottom of where the picture house used to be, bottom of the Springs.
Oh yeah.
Just at bottom of the precinct. To that, I was there. Only reason why I was doing something at the weekend, and I went past that. Lummy neck phone box.
And
It's
it's
still
proper working
Yeah,
phone.
yeah. Well, it wasn't smashed up, but yeah, it still looked like it was potentially you could go in and put your money in and make a
I
call.
bet it's not 10p for the phone call anymore, is it?
I wouldn't have a clue. I wouldn't have a clue.
I bet it's a credit card only. £3.50 a minute.
Phone
Yeah.
boxes.
For me, it's. I think the internet is definitely the big change, the big game changer when it comes to being a teenager. Because I'll be honest with you, it was pretty simple for us as teenagers. We went to school. If you decided to go to school, we might have had a job where you could work, because back in those days you were never governed by health and safety or anything like that. You could get a job as a teenager. You know what I mean? People would employ you. They weren't worried about health and safety and insurance and all that sort of stuff. So you could get a job. You went out on a Saturday. You bought some new clothes. You came home. You organised your mates for the Saturday night through a couple of phone calls, and then you met up. You either met up in a pub if you looked old enough, or you met up in a park, or Wakey Market is one of our favourite places.
Under the bus station clock.
Under the bus station clock, we always used to meet, and you'd have a night out, and then on Sunday, play a bit of football on Sunday morning, and things were pretty simple. And is that same thing for now, or is it
Well,
more
I
complicated?
I wouldn't be I'm not in the football scene, so I wouldn't really see the difference there. But at the same time, I think the internet has made things a lot more complicated. Definitely, like the simplicity of it is gone. It's all very complex. It's all very like, you're reading into things too much. Did a person's text mean one thing? Did a message mean another thing? We've made it a lot harder to connect naturally through the internet. So all the things that we've taken for granted with making mates and stuff like that, it's all come to bite us. All the.
So how would you go about? Reason I'm going to ask this question is social interaction with and actually communicating with other people physically, verbally, talking to someone.
Yeah.
Zoe won't appreciate me saying this, but it wasn't that long ago. She wouldn't even ring for a taxi because she didn't like to speak to somebody on the phone. And I just think that I'd talk to anybody, and it's like, and I think whether it's a northern thing as well. You go down to that day of London and you say hello to somebody, it's like you've got three heads. communication. I just talk to anybody, and I think teenagers have lost that capability
Yeah, I
of being
agree.
able to socially interact and talk about anything. I mean, I can talk about absolutely anything. You know, I'm not saying I might know anything, but I'll have an opinion on something.
Yeah.
and I can definitely converse with someone about
Yeah.
pretty much.
And it's amazing. I mean, I remember dropping Niall off at a friend's house one night, and he was in the car and sat beside him, and he was texting. I said, "Who are you texting?" So I'm letting them know I'm here. And they just knock on the door, and he just looked at me like he was mad. He went, "We don't do that, Dad." I went, "Are you crazy?" And he was like, he was serious, and that was a big shock for me, because I was thinking, well, is there something wrong with Niall that he couldn't do that? And it turns out it's not. It turns out that's just what they do. And I was like, what? You're sitting in a car outside somebody's house and you're texting them to tell them that you're here? Where I come from, that's what the doorbell's for.
Yeah.
Or the door knocker.
They're playing out,
I help me, you like it out.
lecking out. Oh my God, I hadn't heard that. Are you lecking out?
You like it out? Do you not say that anymore? Is that
That's obviously, yeah, it's changed.
Yeah, so it's one of those things. I do think that's a massive game changer for certainly for as a young teenage lad. Certainly when I was out in town, and as I got older, out in town, and you meet a girl, and you get her number, and it'd be a home number, and you'd have to physically ring it. And if you didn't fancy ringing her, if it was just one of those things that you didn't fancy ringing her because you woke up the next morning and thought, nah, I don't really fancy that, you just throw the number in the bin, and that was you done. Nowadays, you can't do that, because as soon as you give over your name, that other person has you hook, line and sinker on every social media platform. They can access everything about you. They can make your life a misery.
Me,
Is that a thing to me? Is that crazy?
Me and Chris were talking about this, and Chris he's got a mind like a planet. He remembers all sorts of rubbish, and he were a brilliant wingman, because my memory's shocking. And I said, remember this number, and it so I'd ring him next day on normal house phone, on phone. What's that number? And it'd be 192. He'd reel it off, and I'd ring it. I can't believe you remember. Oh yeah, I've photographic memory, me, you know. But it's a good job. I mean, some of the stunts we used to get up to, I'm so
See, I was
glad.
such a player. I always brought a pen.
I was never that organised.
But yeah, I mean, it is a game changer though, because you can't get away with it, can you?
No.
You can't do anything, because literally, as soon as you meet somebody now, they know almost if you're silly enough to give you all your details, they can find everything about you. Does that always ever cause you problems now?
I mean, I think you're taking this in a negative light. I only see a positive light to it, because obviously the world being smaller, there's a lot more opportunities for these types of things.
Ah,
you know what
I
I mean?
like the way you're thinking, so.
You cut out the number. You cut out the number thing, and you've got more and more opportunities to
Oh, my Padawan, you have learned.
I'm just saying. That's
No,
right.
it is.
That's
Well,
right.
yeah, there you go. So there's another perspective of it. There's me trying to go, do you know what, I don't really fancy ringing her. I'm throwing the number
Although
away.
I will say, the art of getting a girl's number has been lost.
Yeah.
Like, it's dead in the water. Like, there's no one does that anymore.
So all you need's her name.
Yeah, all you need to
And
do is say, oh yeah, what's
I
your
was
name?
I was a king of knockbacks. Are you serious? I used to. No, then.
This is turning into a show about dating and what not to do when you're dating.
Do you want me to go for a minute? Well, you have like a
Obviously,
nostalgia catch
this,
up.
but remember, this is all teenage stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at, obviously Oliver's, he's only 13. He's not into anything like that at the moment yet. But when young lads and young lasses decide that they're going to go out into the world and start dating, is it now simply because, I don't know about you, we had to physically go up, have that conversation. Is it now done via social media?
It's a generalisation of the whole thing, really. I mean, you can just message someone randomly, and be like, oh yeah, you know, I think you're attractive, and then you go from there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's a really awkward thing when you meet them in person, because you feel like you've spent so much time speaking over message that you have nothing to say in person, and that is a big problem. But at the same time, if you do meet someone in person, and you're like, oh wow, like, you know, do the natural thing of being like, oh, what's your number, or where can I message you on, and then you go from there. That works even better sometimes. You can just be like available to talk as much as you want. I'm saying all these positive things about it. There are massive negatives to it. Like there are big negatives. Like you disconnect a lot more. There's a lot more issues with, establishing sort of trust, because there's that many different areas now on the internet where you can sort of hide away certain things, and that's why a lot of people have been getting in trouble with like cheating's on a big epidemic at the moment. I've seen a lot of lads and lasses cheating because it's a lot. The internet has made it so that hiding information and hiding little things and bits and pieces is so much easier now. So
Yeah, but is that a new thing, cheating?
well, no, I'm not saying
Teenagers.
cheating's a new thing. I'm saying that the art of cheating is now like a refined thing, so you could get away with so much more, and it's awful. Like it really is awful. It creates a big distrust, like in the in the dating scene for teenagers especially. I don't know how it is now with teenage. I mean, I'm saying that I'm not been too long
You've
since.
only just turned 20 now.
But it's all the generations are different. I've found like every generation is different with how they go about things, and how even a difference of 5 years. There's so much change. It's mad.
Right, we're going to break for a song, if that's okay. We're
Yeah.
almost up half an hour gone already.
I know.
And all we've talked about is dating. She's talking about teenagers.
I was having some flashbacks to 1985.
All right, so I was going to say, well, it was a good time. Great song this. So me and Niall have been to see this band live
Hey,
when he was a little lad. So My Chemical Romance and Teenagers.
So as you're coming up, you listen to TC Talks live on Smile Radio. We'll just have a little word from one of our sponsors.
College Grove Nursery in Wakefield has been providing the highest standard of childcare for over 22 years. Situated on Eastmore Road, we are close to the M1 and M62 motorway network, and also convenient for Wakefield city centre, schools and major places of employment. For more details, check out our website at www.collegegrovenursery.co.uk or give us a call on 01924 200 120 to arrange a visit. College Grove, a special nursery which takes a hand, opens a mind and touches a heart.
They're gonna clean up your looks with all the lies in the books to make a citizen out of you. Because they sleep with a gun and keep an eye on you, son, so they can watch all the things you do. Because the drugs never work, they gonna give you a smirk, cause they got methods of keeping you clean. They gonna rip up your heads, your aspirations to shreds. Another cog in the murder machine. They said I'll teenagers scare the living shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So talk in your clothes, I'll strike a violent pose. Maybe they'll leave you alone, but not me. The boys and girls in the clique, the awful names at the stick. You're never gonna fit in much, kid. But if you're troubled and hurt, what you got under your shirt will make them pay for the things that they did. They said, "I'll teenagers scare the living shit out of me." They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So talk in your clothes, I'll strike a violent pose. Maybe they'll leave you alone, but not me. Oh, yeah. Teenagers scare the living shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So talk in your clothes, I'll strike a violent pose. Maybe they'll leave you alone, but not me. All together now. Teenagers scare the living shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So talk in your clothes, I'll strike a violent pose. Maybe they'll leave you alone, but not me. Teenagers scare the living shit out of me. They could care less as long as someone will bleed. So talk in
tune.
How good was that?
Oh yeah, I love that.
Aye, love a bit of My Chemical Romance. Aye.
That's the
Does
one.
that bring back some teenage memories now?
I only barely remember that gig, that My Chemical Romance gig. I was only like, how old was I then? 11,
11 or 12, yeah.
something
No.
like that.
Mason was a teenager then, so it was always his song.
Mason into goth though.
That one and Marty Bum was the two songs that
Oh
Mason.
yeah, Arctic
That's
That's
Monkeys.
my eldest lad. Is,
I think that's a big point for anyone who is around my age. Arctic Monkeys were the bomb when I was younger. Like they were the big revelation.
Yeah.
Like they, as soon as When the Sun Goes Down came out, and we heard someone with a Yorkshire accent on the radio, you're making it big. We were like, this is it. This is the big time.
And that's what I love about teenage. You've just mentioned there a particular song takes you back to a teenage life. What's the songs that you remember as a teenager, Rich?
A lot of it when growing up in a pub, and I like Rod Stewart. There's the first cut is the deepest.
Yeah.
That reminds me. That takes me back to a time is in my very early teenage years.
Yeah.
Good memories. Some not so good, but you
Yeah.
know, yeah. So it were a lot of like the older music,
Yeah.
but then when, like you said, when like Oasis and then definitely when you know the Manchester scene, when all that came in.
Yeah, so that was about 94,
Mm.
90, but
I want to ask as well.
mine's probably Happy Mondays and things like that.
Yeah.
Were either of you two fans of the Smiths?
Yeah, I like
hated
this.
the Smiths.
Did you? I
It's
just
so weird. I don't like the Smiths either.
No,
Really?
there you go.
Yeah,
Well done, that.
because all
I don't mind, but it's about some of the lyrics in the songs. I mean, as a person, I think he's a bit of a hole, but I've never met him. That's a bit of a generalisation,
yeah,
but
yeah.
but some of the lyrics that he wrote about are very, very clever. I think they're very clever.
I've no doubt that I just couldn't. I
No.
could never get
he's
on
a
with
good
it.
writer. Like he's a really good
Yeah.
writer, but I just couldn't. Like there's a few mates of mine that are getting into the Smiths at the moment. You're like, it's like this big indie scene where everyone's going
Yeah.
back to like the 90s and listening to the Smiths and Oasis old records that no one heard of, and even when Queen came out, everyone's going back to the old
Yeah.
Queen albums and being like, oh, I were a fan since the start. And you're like, no, you weren't. You weren't even born in 1970 something. But the Smiths were now a big thing, and I'm
Yeah.
listening to them and I just can't get into it. There's something about it that's really miserable and just like not very lively that I'm.
I think there's certain music that just, and again we spoke about this last week, but stuff that lands with you. And for me, things like Happy Mondays, every time I listen to it, and I don't listen to it often. I'm not one of these guys that's stuck in the 90s. Because I know I've seen friends of mine who are stuck in the 90s who just, that's all they listen to. And fair play to them if that's their thing. But every time I do listen to it, a bit of Happy Mondays, it does transport me back to a time when things were just a little bit simpler. I had my Walkman, Sony Walkman on. Yeah.
With the cassette.
My cassette with the, I'll not name the Happy Mondays album because I don't want to get in trouble from Rich for using bad language. But I'd have the cassette and I'd listen to it. I remember being over in Ireland when we went back after we moved to England. We'd go back on summer holidays, and it'd be that walking around the country and I was just listening to Happy Mondays, and that's a great memory for me. And it's amazing how music just brings back certain times in your life. The Italia 90.
Yeah.
Italia 90 was 16 years of age, and all the music that was around at that particular time. And what a summer that was.
Pavarotti.
Oh, Pavarotti. Yeah, I mean,
Listen
who would have
on.
thought
Yeah.
that a Pavarotti song would bring you back to your teenage years? And Italia 90 for me, again, a big year, because Ireland did pretty well. Sorry, no, you're
just keep that
demolishing the
on my
place, yeah. Ireland did all right in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Not as good as England did, obviously, but we'll not talk about England. But it was phenomenal for me as a 16-year-old lad in England. Apart from getting punched in the pot oil, when Kevin Sheedy equalised against England, and I jumped up in the pot oil, cheered, and before I hit the ground, I'd been punched 3 times by England supporters. I had to leave and go watch the second half on my own.
I tell you what takes me back as well, when doing the paper round, the album, I had that, and I think it might have been my sister's. It was Setting Suns by The Jam, and I, over and over again. That even when I listened to certain songs, because they weren't like a Town Called Malice or something like that. It was some of the really early stuff, and he was a very angry young man. But again, the lyrics to some of the songs are really, really good. But yeah, it's funny how music takes you a place in time.
Music, fashion,
yeah,
the loves,
I don't know,
the
yeah.
girls you loved when you were a teenager, or the boys you loved when you were a teenager, your friendships. Very important. This I shared a picture on Facebook of a holiday that we went on to Newquay. I don't know if you've seen that picture. Have you seen that picture now?
I haven't seen that picture.
Of me and the lads outside a tent.
Oh wait, no, I have seen that picture.
So the lads, and we call ourselves the lads. It's just, there's a few of us. There was Stevie Walker, Nicky Wilson, Stephen Paul, Daz Nixon, and myself, Russ, and Andy Turton. And we were all, we just all went to Newquay. We're supposed to hire a 7-seat car, but it never happened. And we ended up taking the train. And we'd bought our tickets using Nicky Wilson's Royal Marines Army Pass. And we got to Derby train station. Bearing in mind there's 5 or 6 lads on a train, off on holiday, all our kit, tents and all this. 2 British Transport policemen waiting at the platform for us to take us off the train. The charge us with fraud. 16 years of age. Can you imagine if your kids did that now? You did what? You did what? You defrauded the government. And we were like, well, we didn't think we were doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Got to have a really big discount. And they wrote us out a fine and said, yeah, you've got to pay that. I better not say this. We did pay the fine, of course. The fine was paid promptly within 90 days. You just watch now. They'll send me a bill for that, won't they? But what a holiday that was. It was just such a great time of the lads just going away, first time away properly. Just going away with no parents around. Lots of young people in Newquay. Just a great vibe. Great people. Not like your festivals that you guys go to where they've got music as a focal point. This was pure just being with your mates, like drinking. And being in that sort of environment. I suppose that is like a festival then, isn't it?
Well,
That's your thing now, yeah.
Point. There's something that's a focal point for everything. Yeah. The reason that everyone's a football hooligan sometimes is the football is the focal point. No one actually cares about the football. They just want to be there for the environment of it. Yeah. Like you find that a lot of the times. Sometimes we're not even there for the music. We just go as a chance to all meet up and spend a whole 7 days of just no phones, no bother, just being in the moment. Like that's a really good thing. Yeah. I think that's what we've lost along the way with the internet. I keep bringing up the point, but at the same time, it's what my teenage years are feeling like, or felt like. I'm not used to being 20.
You're still a teenager.
Yeah, I'm still,
I don't think you went through rehab properly.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I don't think I did.
I don't think you've cut it loose, son.
Not yet.
Niall, it's not your fault. It's not your fault.
I still remember the days.
Get over your teenage years, son. They're over.
I'll tell you what, I want to ask you two something, a bit of an open-ended question on about the teenage years. And about the rose-tinted glasses thing earlier. I thought that were an interesting point. So I wanted to ask, do you think that you've sort of, for the sake of the happiness of your teenage years, do you think you've sort of changed or maybe forgotten, not purposefully, but forgotten certain aspects of your teenage years for the rose-tinted glasses effect of your teenage years? Say the moments that you could recall that were happier than other moments, or moments that were sadder than other moments, for the sake of looking at it in a rose-tinted way, and benefiting from a teenage perspective where you could say, yeah, I had a really good teenage life.
I think when I talk to school kids in my talk, I make sure I get through to them that it's not rose-tinted. My teenage years were turbulent teenage years. They were filled with alcohol and drugs and violence, casual sex. It was just a nightmare, really. If you look back on it, it was everything you don't want your child to do. And so the rose-tinted glasses are there, I think, to filter that down for me when I'm talking to you guys. Yeah. But if you broke it down and actually analysed that behaviour that I was going through, lots of depression thrown in there, lots of anger, lots of resentment, lots of what else? Just feeling lost a lot of the time. Even though we're a group of lads, just wanting to be in that moment all the time. And then when I was away from that moment, I would just throw myself into work. At 16, I was working, I'd work 10, 12, 14-hour days just to make sure I was doing something. So yeah, the rose-tinted glasses for me, I think every generation does it, because you hear them talking about the 60s. Hold on here, the 60s was, again, full of promiscuity, drug use, violence, all sorts of different stuff that was going on. Unemployment, there was all sorts of stuff going on. 70s, same again, it was horrendous, the 70s. But we all looked through, it was disco here, it was this, it was that. No, it wasn't, it was horrendous. The 90s, it was, lots of drugs, lots of violence, lots of things that you probably shouldn't have been doing. But for me, I try not to always look through rose-tinted glasses. I like sometimes, though, remembering those good years.
But I think everybody, and a bit of a generalisation, I think everybody, it's like a relationship, isn't it? You only think of the good times when you're hurting. I remember when Louise Jeffries broke my heart.
She's still on Facebook. Have you stalked her?
Yeah.
Get in touch if you're listening.
No, don't.
Here's all the details.
Sorry, Marie.
No,
Causing divorce in your house tonight.
no, you'll anyway, we'll
Don't
talk.
go there.
We'll talk off air about that. But anyway, when you think about certain situations, it takes you back, and you only think of the good times. You forget all the pain and the hurt that you went through and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I think everybody does that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was exactly the same. I lost my mum when my mum passed away when I was 12, but she was poorly for all my memories of my mum, and I was really angry. And we talked about faith and all. On the day of my mum's funeral, the vicar or father or whatever he was said it's God's will. And I won't repeat what I said to him, and I got a clip off my dad on the day of my mum's funeral, and it's just, I was, for a long time, and that you'll probably be able to relate better than anybody about the deep-rooted anger that you have.
It's phenomenal.
And it's still there, and Marie and I were talking about this on Saturday, and occasionally it rears its ugly head, but I know it's there, and that's, there's certain elements that happened in the last few years.
You've got to pay attention sometimes, Richard. You can't avoid that thing that comes up within you, and anger and frustration that comes out, and certainly for me, there were some turbulent times, there's some great times as well. Nothing better, again, like I said, about standing on the terraces at Leeds United, supporting your club, but also nothing worse than knowing that you'd hurt somebody in a relationship, and I hurt loads of people. I did meet an ex-partner many years later from my teenage years, and she described me as the worst boyfriend she'd ever had. I think that was phenomenal. I was almost like, I need a badge for that.
Yeah.
The worst boyfriend she'd ever had. Now, that was a fair old boast, was that? Because, she's not young anymore. But the worst boyfriend she'd ever had. And that's the sort of character I was. I was horrible. I was horrible to girls. I was horrible to lads. I wanted to fight everyone. I was horrible on the football pitch. I just was horrible. But I always remember it differently. And I think it's important that you do sometimes remember it. Remember the good times as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And certainly for you now, you're looking back on it. You can focus on some of the negative parts that have gone on and learn from them. You've got to learn from them.
Well, that's the thing, because obviously when you're younger, like when you're about my age, I'm saying this another generalisation, but most people aren't as self-aware of like remembering and reflecting the teenage years as I am currently. Like being aware of the fact that it's not too long ago. Like it's really not, and you're like having all of that to think on. Do I go forward and think, I'll just manipulate some parts of it that I think are good, and then sort of have that in my rearview mirror?
I think the difference for us, we have to rely on memories, whereas it's all recorded.
Yeah,
everything is recorded now.
I can just like look back and be like, I remember that.
I work on the theory and don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. All right, that's how my childhood has always been, and I will continue to do that until somebody points it out that no, Tom, that wasn't right.
Your entire life.
What do you mean Paul McCartney wasn't my dad? Of course he was. Yeah, so it is. it's a good point from Rich that yeah, you guys, your almost entire childhood has been documented through Facebook and Twitter and all those sorts of things, and it's only going to get worse for children, where they're going to get everything literally documented, and it's going to be that's what happened. There'll be no rose tinted glasses because you can see exactly how it was.
Yeah.
And I think that's not really nice. I'd rather you just have the experience. So I say to people when they go to things like concerts or football matches, just go to the concert, put your mobile phone down and stop looking at it through a screen. Actually be in the moment. Stop looking at it through a screen. And I see it all the time where people are going out for a meal and they're photographing the food. I'm guilty as well. I've done it. And you think, well, hold on, no, just go and enjoy your food.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're running to be Prime Minister, don't let anyone record anything that you do at a gig or anything like that, because it could go against you in a row.
I've got
Especially
no chance.
Especially with a pig's head. But anyway, I think should we break for a song on that bombshell?
Yeah.
Before we bring out Rich's skeleton in his closet.
Yeah.
I forgot what the next one is.
It's Stacey's mum.
Well, you see, I only got this because of the video. Do you remember the video?
I do, yeah.
If you don't know the video of this one, just watch it, lads. And obviously, girls as well, if you want to watch it, it's a pretty good video. Enjoy.
We'll be right back after this. You're listening to TC Talks live on Smile Radio.
Stacey's mom has got it going on. 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 Stacey, can I come over after school? After school, we can hang around by the pool. Hang by the pool. Did your mom get back from her business trip? Business trip. Is she there, or is she trying to give me the slip? Give me the slip. You know I'm not the little boy that I used to be. I'm all grown up now, baby, can't you see? Stacey's mom has got it going on. She's all I want, and I've waited for so long. Stacey, can't you see? You're just not the girl for me. I know it might be wrong, but I'm in love with Stacey's mom. Stacey's mom has got it going on. Stacey's mom has got it going on. Stacey, do you remember when I mowed your lawn? Mowed your lawn. Your mom came out with just a towel on. Towel on. I could tell she liked me from the way she stared. Way she stared. And the way she said, you missed a spot over there. Spot over there. And I know that you think it's just a fantasy, but since your dad walked out, your mom could use a guy like me. Stacey's mom has got it going on. She's all I want, and I've waited for so long. Stacey, can't you see? You're just not the girl for me. I know it might be wrong, but I'm in love with Stacey's mom. Stacey's mom has got it going on. She's all I want, and I've waited for so long. Stacey, can't you see? You're just not the girl for me. I know it might be wrong. I'm in love with Stacey's mom. I'm in love with Stacey's mom. Wait a minute, Stacey, can't you see? You're just not the girl for me. I know it might be wrong, but I'm in love with Stacey's mom.
So we're back with TC Talks live on Smile Radio. Oh, hang on. Whoa. We can tell we're live.
That was a quick end, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah.
There's no fading out with Stacey's mum, was there? Anyway, come on, I'm starting to sound a bit weird there. So, obviously, guys, we talked about rose-tinted glasses, but there is a darker side to being a teenager. And over Christmas, tragically in this area, I think there was 5 young people. Don't know if they were all teenagers, but there was a few teenagers who sadly took their own life. And for me, that just shows the pressure that some of these teenagers are under, and some of them aren't coping with it. And I think it's really important that we try to support our younger people in understanding that what you're going through is perfectly normal. You know, the relationship worries, your stresses about work, your college education, and your deadlines. Look, people have done it before. You're not on your own with this one. And to actually get to the point where you're so depressed that you want to, take your own life, to me, it's just a pretty sad indictment of where some of our teenagers are. Would you agree?
100%. I think the main thing is that, I mean, we've spoken about this before. The internet has created a bit of a disconnection with everyone. We've created a wall between, interacting like an emotional human being with someone and actually getting a point across. Obviously, I'm not saying that back in the 90s, 80s and 70s there weren't teenagers killing themselves because of pressures of family. It's just the expectations have changed through the generations. Whereas before, you obviously had things like, get a job, stick in that job. If you didn't have a job, you were a disgrace back in like 90s and 80s, because that was what was a priority. And nowadays it is, kind of the same deal of getting a job, but also maintaining a level of relevancy. That's what we are now in this culture. It's staying relevant on the internet. Yeah. The internet's created this relevancy almost like a currency. If you don't have this certain amount of likes, this certain amount of followers, you aren't relevant. And I'm saying to everyone that none of it matters. At the end of the day, I heard a quote from Gary Vee. I'll quote this right now because I think it's so important, that if Instagram, Facebook, all these social media sites crashed, you'd be surprised how many people would disappear, because that's all they are, social media presence. It is the least important thing in the world. What's important is the person next to you, your family, friends that are around you that are impacted by what you say, what you do, who you're around. They're the ones with the repercussions of your actions. If I know this is a point that people bring up about suicide, which is so backwards and awful, but there's a ripple factor to suicide. A ripple factor that goes further than you'd expect, and it's worth considering, thinking about the ripple effect. Obviously, if you're in your own head thinking about it, you won't think about it, but it's worth thinking about, because obviously parents, family members are all affected by it. Communities are affected by it. I don't know the lads that have taken their lives recently over Christmas, but they've gone to my school. And that's how close to home it's been, and that's the
there
ripple.
Are people, aren't
there?
Yeah,
the people, the human beings.
Marie's asked on Facebook Live saying, do you think teenagers are under more pressure now?
Yeah.
I think what Lyles was saying there.
I think so, definitely.
The pressure to be liked, the pressure to be accepted, the pressure to have a voice and to have an opinion on everything. Let's be right about it. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone has to have an opinion. If you don't have an opinion, like you say now, you disappear. But I think the point you're making about the ripple effect is really poignant, because some people who are in that headspace, and I've been in that headspace myself, where I've felt like not going on, and you look at the immediate people around you and you don't want to bother them, I would suggest to you that you look beyond those immediate people. So look further down the ripple. And maybe they're the people you need to talk to, because they're still going to be affected, but they're distant enough that they're not going to try and influence you in any way. They might just listen. So look further down the ripple. Rather than just looking at the people directly around you, look into your community. Look at people who can actually give you space where you can communicate and you can be heard. I think Lee mentioned that all the time. People just want to be heard. Yeah, that's all it is. They just want to be heard. Sometimes it doesn't matter about what you're talking about, and this is again goes back to social media. It's completely irrelevant to your life what you've put on social media.
What message would you give out then, Tom, for if there's anybody, teenagers out there that may be struggling or having them kind of thoughts? What advice would you give?
I accept sometimes that you're going to have some heartache. You're going to make mistakes. You are going to get things wrong. And I told my students today, I was speaking to year 5s and 6s today. So these are kids of 10 and 11 years of age. I said the most important thing for you to be is to be honest with yourself and with those around you. And if you're honest with yourself and you're honest with those around you, people will step in and people will support you and people will give you the stuff that you need. Don't try and do this on your own. Nobody has managed to navigate this life on a singular path. You know, we walk as a tribe, we eat as a tribe, we die as a tribe. And I think that's what we need to remember. We are not in this world alone. And I think if you're honest with yourself and honest with those around you, it's so much easier as life. And don't be scared to make mistakes. You mentioned this earlier on now. Don't be scared to make mistakes.
Oh yeah, make as many mistakes as you can. Not obviously not life-threatening or awful ones like that, but little mistakes that you wouldn't get away with when you're older. Make them now, because then you can learn from them, you can build, you can grow. And obviously, repeating the point, you aren't alone at all.
Yeah, I've had this conversation about relationships, and it would be naive for any teenager out there to think they're going to meet Mrs. Right or Mr. Right at 16 years of age, having had one boyfriend or one girlfriend. Now, it does happen, but it would be, it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing that goes on. Maybe in the 1950s it happened all the time. Yeah. Sadly, I don't think it happens. You have to go through relationships. You have to learn what you like, what you don't like. And it might take, a few goes before you find the right girl.
I think coming up, because the last song you've picked, I think would be quite appropriate for the content you're talking about.
It is, yeah, definitely.
But I think we're just about out of time, Tom, so I'm really sorry for it. But
guys, teenage life, enjoy it. If you're out there still loving it, if you're like us and you're old, just reminisce through rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah, like the 2 out of the 3. I'm not there yet.
Niall, thanks for joining us as always. Yeah, Rich, always great. Catch you next week, 7:30. This is Waitus and Teenage Dirtbag.
So don't forget, if you've missed this or any of the shows, you can go to our website, www.smileradio.co, click on demand and listen again. Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks for listening.
Rock on.
It